Hello everyone. I'm here to preview the New England-Minnesota game, and New England comes into this game at 8-3 atop the AFC East as they normally are. They're 8th in total offense at 388.2 yards a game, 11th in passing yards at 270, tied for 3rd in sacks allowed at 16, 12th in rushing yards at 118.2, but they're tied for 21st in yards per carry at 4.2, 14th in third down percentage at 40%, tied 7th in points per game at 27.9. Defensively, they are 22nd in total defense at 377.5 yards a game allowed, 25th in passing yards allowed at 269.7, 30th in sacks with only 17 this year, 14th in rushing yards allowed at 107.7, and they're tied for 14th in yards per carry allowed at 4.4. They're 25th in third down percentage on defense at 43%, and they're tied for 11th in points per game allowed at 22.6. And got some injuries. Just one. Dwayne Allen, tight end, he's out with a knee. Everyone else was removed from their injury report. So that's always fun, playing a healthy New England team. And Minnesota comes into the game at 6-4-1, trailing the Bears. Offensively, 14th in total offense at 368.5 yards a game, 7th in passing yards at 283.2. Tied for 15th in sacks allowed at 28, 30th in rushing yards at 85.3, and they're tied for 27th in yards per carry at a whopping 3.9 yards a carry. 13th in third down percentage at 40%, and 16th in points per game at 24.1. Defensively, 3rd in total defense at allowing 314.7 yards a game. They're 5th in passing yards allowed at 221.1, and tied for 3rd in sacks at 36. They're tied for 4th in rushing yards allowed at 93.6, and tied for 3rd in yards per carry allowed at 3.7. They're 1st in third down percentage at 28%, and 10th in points per game allowed at 22.4. Now, Minnesota's injury report is a little longer than what New England had. Chad Beebe, receiver, he's out with a hamstring. David Morgan still out with a knee. Xavier Rhodes is listed as questionable for this game with the hamstring. I do anticipate him not playing just because that injury seemed worse than a 1-week thing, and hamstrings are always hard to get right. So I imagine his questionable is probably closer to a doubtful. Diggs has a knee, he's questionable, and I think he only did a limited variation of practice today. So I don't know about him. Mackenzie Alexander with a knee is questionable, and Brandon Zylstra, the wide receiver, is also questionable with a foot. Now, offensively, if Diggs can't go, that's a huge issue. And whether he can go or can't go, I would expect more Cook and Kyle Rudolph this game, just because that seemed to have worked last week a little bit, and there were some mumblings around there saying how Kirk needs to kind of check it down a little bit more rather than as opposed to chucking it deep down the field. And I feel like the guys that can mainly, benefit from that, probably Cook and Rudolph, and it seemed to work last week mainly in third down situations. So I imagine we see kind of more of an emphasis either way on those two, but expect that to be much larger if Stephon Diggs can't, play in the game, because I think what we saw against Detroit a few weeks back was Diggs couldn't play, and Adam Thielen only had 22 yards. Cousins had a very pedestrian day at best. It seemed to be a problem if Diggs couldn't go. So if he can't go, expect Dalvin Cook and Kyle Rudolph to make up for much of that. And the run game might still be quite a large issue as long as David Morgan's out. But you still need to try, just because Belichick is a guy that will take advantage of that entirely. And it's not even close. He will probably kill you for it. And this will probably need to be a Cousins kind of game if we're going to win it, because, like I said, David Morgan being out is a big issue, as he is by far the best blocking tight end on this roster. And ever since he went out, we've seeing the whole run game just get worse and worse and worse. So that brings us back to Kirk Cousins. We need the Kirk Cousins that we saw last week. And if we don't get that Kirk Cousins, then we probably have issues. And that's not always good. But one way to do that is Cook in space. And I feel like every time we get Dalvin Cook in space, good things tend to happen. And why not? This seems like a very good time to kind of unleash that. This would be the time of year where you need to get hot, and especially on the offensive side where they've struggled a little bit more as of, well, I guess, yes and no, it's inconsistent, but only good things happen when Dalvin Cook's in space for this offense. So I would imagine, like I said, more Cook and Rudolph that goes into this. Maybe we never really get the run game going, but we start using Cook in more of these swing screens. Maybe we motion him to the slot, do some bubble screens. Extensions of the run game that aren't really the run game might be the answer for no run game. And this defense doesn't seem to stop the pass very well. Like I said, they were 25th in pass defense, and they're only got 17 sacks on the year. So we need to protect Kirk Cousins. There needs to be no turnovers in this game if they are to win. And because, New England will capitalize on them. And they need to convert on third downs to really prolonged drives. They need to be able to stay on the field and eat clock, keep Brady off, because the longer Brady's out there, the higher their win chances go up. So, defensively, pressure Brady early and often, but you need to do it with the front four, because usually when you start blitzing Brady is when you start getting issues ahead here. And that mainly means the interior pressure. And so we're looking at Sheldon Richardson, Linval Joseph, Tom Johnson, Jaleel Johnson, just the whole thing. We need those guys to be able to push the pocket from the middle. And because, with Brady, he will maneuver around the pocket. It's very hard for him, in general, to avoid interior pressure. He's not the most athletically gifted guy, and it's hard for him to escape the pocket like that. So you need mainly front four, interior pressure. And I do think you need to make them dump the ball over the middle and prevent outside shots, even though we've seen some decline in Tom Brady's arm this year, a little bit more than, the past 2 or 3 years now. The reason why I say the middle and not the outside is because I don't think there's going to be Xavier Rhodes. If there is Xavier Rhodes, I would say force him outside. But if you're forcing him outside this game, Holton Hill against Brady with Josh Gordon on the other end, Chris Hogan, whoever it may be, I don't like my chances. So fan out a little bit. You need to get your interior pressure and hope you can rally and make the tackle on James White or Julian Edelman, which is not always the most fun way to try to play the New England Patriots. And obviously, you need to shut down Sony Michel, because if they get Sony Michel going, then you're really in for a long day against New England. And in doing that, you kind of need to force Brady's arm to beat you, because like I said, we've seen some decline in his physical skills, and we need to force them into third and long so we can actually implement the whole just rally, make tackle, because I'm not sure we can just man up outside, have them go, because I feel like Josh Gordon might have his way with Holton Hill if that is done that way, even though Holton Hill's played well so far this year when he's played. Small sample size, don't know if I trust it against New England in New England. And special teams, no block kicks or punts. There's no way we recover from that in this game. We've seen it in the past. Maybe not this year, but we've seen it. And special teams is always, not kind to us. And Dan, just make the kicks, please. We don't need to have this every week again, because he's only kicking from 75%, and this is sadly, I think, better than. I know it's definitely better than Carlson. And Forbath, he struggled with extra points, Dan Bailey doesn't struggle with extra points, but he can struggle with field goals sometimes. So there's always something with this kicker, this whole kicking situation. It's always something. And my prediction for this game is I'm going to take New England to win it 24-20. And reasoning being, it's just very difficult to win in New England in December. But I do expect it to be close because I do think that Minnesota matches up well in some aspects, especially if Diggs can play. Then you take advantage of a very weak passing defense, and maybe you don't always get the big shot, but you can at least kind of methodically dink and dunk your way down the field with Diggs, Thielen, and Cook in there, maybe some Kyle Rudolph mixed in, and you might be able to get prolonged drives potentially. But it's still New England in New England, and it is what it is. I do expect it to be close, and hopefully they kind of have a chance to steal this at the end of the game from the Patriots, but I'm not expecting them to prevail. It wouldn't necessarily shock me, but it's not expected, and I don't have cautiously optimistic. I would like to know what you guys think in the comments down below, and until next time, I bid y'all adieu.